The funeral director handed me the final bill with the kind of practiced sympathy that comes with charging grieving families $4,000 for a wooden box. I signed it without reading the total. What was the point? Mom was gone, and no amount of money would change that. My name is Marley, and 3 months ago, I watched my mother die inch by inch from pancreatic cancer. For 18 months, I held her hand through chemo, drove her to appointments, and slept on a cot beside her hospital bed. I quit my marketing job, moved back into my childhood home, and became her full-time caregiver while my older brother Moses was God knows where, probably high in some alley. But Moses showed up to the funeral looking clean-shaven and sober, wearing a suit I'd never seen before. He gave a beautiful eulogy about second chances and redemption that made half the congregation cry. Even I almost believed him. Almost. "We need to talk about the house," Dad said, setting down his coffee cup on the kitchen table where Mom used to do crossword puzzles every morning. It had been a week since we buried her. The three of us sat in the same spots we'd occupied during countless family dinners, except now there was an empty chair where she used to sit. Moses had been staying at Dad's apartment across town, but somehow he'd convinced Dad to have this meeting here, in Mom's house. "What about it?" I asked, though something cold was already settling in my stomach. Moses leaned forward, his hands clasped like he was in some kind of therapy session. "Marley, I know this is hard to hear, but Dad and I have been talking. We think it's time to sell." The words hit me like a slap. Sell? Mom just died 3 months ago. "That's exactly why we need to do this now," Dad said, not meeting my eyes. "This house, it's too full of memories, too painful. And Moses needs a fresh start somewhere new." "A fresh start?" I repeated the words slowly, tasting the bitterness. "Where exactly have you been for the past 2 years, Moses?" "While I was emptying Mom's bedpan and crushing her pills into applesauce." Moses had the decency to look ashamed for about 2 seconds. "I was getting clean, Marley. I've been in rehab working on myself. Mom would want me to have a second chance." "Don't you dare tell me what Mom would want." "Girls, please," Dad said, using the same tone he'd used when we were kids fighting over the TV remote. Except we weren't kids anymore, and this wasn't about television. Moses pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "We already found a buyer. Cash offer, above asking price. The sale closes next Friday." I stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "Next Friday? That's 6 days from now." "The buyer wants to flip it quickly," Dad explained. "Moses needs the money to relocate to Portland. There's a job opportunity there and a sober living facility that comes highly recommended." "How much of the money does Moses get?" I asked. They exchanged a look that told me everything I needed to know. "We're splitting it evenly," Moses said. 3 ways. 3 ways. I nodded slowly. "And where exactly am I supposed to live? This has been my home for the past 2 years." "You can find an apartment," Dad said. "You're young, you'll figure it out. This is about healing as a family." I looked around the kitchen where Mom had taught me to make her famous tres leches cake, where she'd sat me down at 16 to explain why Moses kept disappearing for weeks at a time, where she'd cried in my arms the night the doctor told us the cancer had spread to her liver. "When do I need to be out?" I asked quietly. "The moving truck comes Monday morning," Moses said. "I've already arranged everything." Something inside me went very still and very cold. They'd planned this whole thing without me, made decisions about my life, my home, my future, like I was some kind of inconvenience to be managed. I stood up and walked to the kitchen window, looking out at Mom's rose garden that I'd been tending since she got too weak to do it herself. The roses were blooming beautifully, just like she would have wanted. "Okay," I said, turning back to face them. "If that's what you both want." Moses looked surprised by how easily I'd accepted it. Dad looked relieved. "I'm glad you understand," Dad said. This is really for the best. I smiled at both of them, the kind of smile I'd perfected during Mum's illness when the nurses asked how I was holding up. Bright and reassuring and completely fake. Of course, I said. Family first, right? What they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that Mom had seen this coming from a mile away, and she'd made sure I'd be ready for it. The deed to the house was sitting in my bedroom safe, signed over to me a full year ago. Legal, notarized, and absolutely ironclad. The moving truck could come on Monday. Hell, they could bring a whole parade, but nobody was taking my mother's house. Nobody. I waited until Dad's car pulled out of the driveway before heading upstairs to my bedroom. The safe was hidden behind Mom's old jewelry box on my dresser, a small fireproof thing she'd bought me for my college documents. My hand shook as I entered the combination. Mom's birthday. The deed sat on top, exactly where I'd left it 3 months ago. Seeing my name typed in official legal font still felt surreal. I grabbed it along with the folder of supporting documents and headed straight to Anne's apartment. Anne Hamilton had been my best friend since college and worked as a paralegal at Morrison & Associates downtown. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was her. Holy shit, Anne said, spreading the documents across her coffee table. Your mum really did this? 13 months ago, I said, sinking into her couch. She made me promise not to tell Dad or Moses unless something like this happened. Anne picked up the deed, examining the notary seal. This is rock solid, completely legal. Your brothers and father have zero claim to this property. Moses isn't my brother anymore, I said. Brothers don't disappear when their mother is dying. Fair enough. Anne grabbed her laptop. We need to file an emergency injunction immediately. If they're closing Friday, we have to move fast. Can we stop it? Marley, you own the house. They can't sell what isn't theirs. This sale is fraudulent. Anne's fingers flew across her keyboard. I'm drafting the paperwork now. We'll file first thing Monday morning. The moving truck comes Monday. Anne grinned. Perfect timing then. I leaned back against the couch cushions, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. What happens to Moses when this all comes out? Depends on how deep his involvement goes. If he knowingly participated in trying to sell property he doesn't own. Anne shrugged. That's fraud. Could be criminal charges. Good. Anne looked up from her laptop. You sure about this? Once we file these papers, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. I thought about Moses's smug face when he slid that folder across the table, the way Dad couldn't even look at me when he talked about healing as a family. The 18 months I'd spent watching Mom waste away while they were nowhere to be found. They already made their choice, I said. We spent the next 2 hours going over every detail. Anne explained how the injunction would work, what documents we'd need, and what to expect when the sale imploded. By the time I left her apartment, I felt like I was carrying a loaded weapon. Sunday night, I barely slept. Every car that drove past made me think it was Moses coming to check on the house. I kept the deed in my purse, afraid to let it out of my sight. Monday morning arrived grey and drizzly. I made coffee in Mum's favorite mug and sat at the kitchen table, waiting. Anne had filed the injunction at 9 a.m. sharp. The courthouse would serve the papers to all parties involved: Dad, Moses, the buyer, and the realtor. At 10:30, I heard the rumble of a large truck turning onto our street. I walked to the front window and watched a massive moving truck park in front of the house. 2 guys in matching uniforms climbed out and started unloading dollies and moving blankets. Behind them, a black SUV pulled up. Moses got out first, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. Dad emerged from the passenger side, carrying a clipboard and looking nervous. Then a third car arrived, a silver sedan. A man in an expensive suit climbed out, checking his phone. Had to be the buyer. This was it. I grabbed my purse, made sure the deed was inside, and walked to the front door. Through the glass, I could see Moses directing the movers toward the porch steps. "Morning, Marley," Moses called out when I opened the door. "Hope you got everything packed up." The buyer approached, extending his hand. "You must be the daughter. I'm Zachariah, really excited about this property. Great bones, lots of potential." "I'm sure it does," I said, shaking his hand. Dad walked up carrying a thick manila envelope. "These are the final papers, Zachariah. Everything should be in order." "Actually," I said, reaching into my purse, "there's been a small complication." I pulled out the injunction papers Anne had given me, along with a copy of the deed. "The sale has been legally frozen pending resolution of a property dispute." Zachariah's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, what?" "The house was transferred to me over a year ago," I said, handing him the deed. "This sale is fraudulent." Moses snatched the papers from Zachariah's hands. His face went white as he read. "This is impossible. Dad, you said—" "I said what?" Dad grabbed the deed, scanning it frantically. "Juliana never told me about this." "Because she knew you'd tell Moses," I said. "And she was right." Zachariah was already on his phone. "My lawyer needs to see these documents immediately. If this is legitimate, I'm pulling out of the sale." "It's legitimate," I said. "Notarized and filed with the county." Moses threw the papers on the ground. "You conniving bitch! You've been planning this the whole time." "No," I said calmly. "Mom was planning this. I'm just following her wishes." The movers stood frozen on the porch, unsure whether to keep working or pack up their truck. Zachariah was pacing the driveway, shouting into his phone about legal fees and wasted time. Dad looked like he might collapse. "Molly, we can work this out. We're family." "Family," I repeated. "Where was my family when Mom was dying?" Moses stepped closer, his face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart? You have no idea what you just did." I looked him straight in the eye. "This is what Mom wanted, Moses, and deep down you know it." Something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or guilt. He knew exactly why Mom had done this. The question was, what else did he know? Zachariah snapped his phone shut and marched over to us. "This is unacceptable. I've already put down earnest money, arranged financing, scheduled contractors. If this sale falls through because of your family's incompetence, I'll sue every one of you." "Sue me for what?" I asked. "Owning my own house?" "For wasting my time and money." Zachariah's face was turning red. "I have a business to run." Moses grabbed Dad's arm. "How did you not know about this? You were married to her for 30 years. "She never said anything," Dad stammered. "I swear, Moses, I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," I said, "because you stopped paying attention to Mom the minute her diagnosis got complicated. You were too busy feeling sorry for yourself to notice what she was actually doing." "That's not fair," Dad said. "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Was it fair when I had to quit my job to take care of her? Was it fair when I spent my savings on her medical bills while Moses was off finding himself?" One of the movers cleared his throat. Should we keep loading the truck or—" "No," I said firmly. "There's nothing to move." "Yes, there is," Moses snapped. "This is bullshit legal maneuvering. Dad, tell them to keep working." Dad looked between Moses and me like a deer caught in headlights. "I don't know what to do." Zachariah pulled out his phone again. "I'm calling my attorney right now. This whole transaction reeks of fraud." "Good idea," I said. "Have him explain how you can't buy a house from someone who doesn't own it." "The deed could be forged," Moses said desperately. "People fake documents all the time." I pulled out my phone and called Anne. She answered on the first ring. "Anne, I need you to confirm something for the buyer here. Can you verify that the deed transfer was properly filed with the county?" I put the phone on speaker. "Absolutely," Anne's voice came through clearly. I pulled the records this morning. The transfer was filed 14 months ago and is completely legitimate. The current legal owner of the property is Marley Delgado. Zachariah's shoulders sagged. This is a nightmare. Your nightmare is just beginning, Moses said, pointing at me. You think this is over? You have no idea what you've started. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. Moses stepped closer, lowering his voice. There are people counting on this money, Marley. People who don't take disappointment well. A chill ran down my spine, but I kept my voice steady. That sounds like a you problem. It's about to become an everyone problem. Dad grabbed Moses' shoulder. What people? Shoulder. What are you talking about? Nothing, Dad. Just forget it. Moses ran his hands through his hair. We need to figure out another way. There is no other way, I said. The house is mine. End of story. Zachariah was back on his phone, but I caught fragments of his conversation. Legal action, breach of contract, damages. The movers started loading their equipment back onto the truck without being asked. They'd clearly dealt with this kind of family drama before. Marley, Dad said quietly, can we talk inside? Just the three of us? No, I said. Anything you want to say, you can say out here. Please, we're family. We can work this out. We were family when Mom was dying, I said. Where were you then? Moses threw his hands up. I was sick. I was in rehab. For 2 years? Which rehab takes 2 years, Moses? He didn't answer. That's what I thought. I turned to Dad. And you? What's your excuse? You lived 20 minutes away but visited maybe once a week. I couldn't handle seeing her like that, Dad whispered. So you left it all to me. The medical appointments, the insurance fights, the sleepless nights when she was in pain, all of it. Zachariah finished his call and walked back over. My lawyer says if this deed is legitimate, I have no legal recourse against you, but I can pursue damages against anyone who knowingly misrepresented ownership of the property. He looked directly at Dad and Moses. Did either of you know about this deed transfer? No, Dad said quickly. I had no idea, Moses added, but something in Moses's voice made me pause. The way he'd reacted when I mentioned Mom's wishes, the fear in his eyes. Actually, I said slowly, I think Moses knew exactly what Mom was planning. That's ridiculous, Moses said, but his voice cracked slightly. Is it? You visited her right before she got really sick, didn't you? Asked her for money. Moses's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. She told me about that visit, Moses. How you showed up high, begging for cash. How she realized you'd never really changed. You're lying. Am I? That's when she decided to transfer the house to me, right after your little visit. Dad stared at Moses. You went to see your dying mother to ask for money? It wasn't like that, Moses said weakly. Then what was it like? I asked. Moses looked around at all the faces staring at him, Dad's horrified expression, Zachariah's disgust, the movers shaking their heads. He was trapped, and he knew it. This isn't over, he said finally. You think you won, but you have no idea what you've done. He stalked toward Dad's car, then turned back. When this all falls apart, don't come crying to me. Dad followed him, looking lost and confused. Moses, wait. We need to talk about this. They drove away, leaving me standing in the driveway with Zachariah and 2 very confused movers. Well, Zachariah said, this has been educational. Sorry for wasting your time, I said. Actually, you saved me from making a very expensive mistake. He handed me his business card. If you ever decide to sell legitimately, give me a call. After everyone left, I sat on Mom's front porch steps and looked at her rose garden. The morning had gone better than I'd hoped, but Moses's threats kept echoing in my head. People who don't take disappointment well. What had he gotten himself into this time? My phone rang at 2 p.m. Unknown number. Is this Marley? Who's asking? This is Soleil Ortiz. I was the realtor handling the sale of your property. We need to talk. I almost hung up. There's nothing to talk about. The sale is dead. Please, just give me 10 minutes. There are things you need to know about your brother. Something in her voice made me pause. What kind of things? Not over the phone. Can you meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street in an hour? I found Soleil sitting in the back corner, nursing a venti coffee and looking like she hadn't slept. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with perfectly styled hair that couldn't hide the stress lines around her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. I wasn't sure you would. You said you had information about Moses. I do. Soleil pulled out a thick folder. But first, you need to understand something. That sale falling through just cost me a $20,000 commission. I'm sorry, but I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking for justice. She opened the folder. Your brother forged documents to push this sale through. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. What? Power of attorney papers, property transfer forms, even a fake death certificate for your mother dated 6 months earlier than the real one. Soleil spread the papers across the table. He created an entire paper trail to make it look like your father had full legal authority to sell. I stared at the documents. Moses's signature was on half of them, but the handwriting looked different on each one. Sloppy, desperate. Why are you showing me this? Because I could lose my license over this mess. If the real estate commission finds out I processed fraudulent paperwork, I'm done. Soleil leaned forward. But if I can prove I was deceived by your brother, I might survive this. What do you want from me? Help me nail him. These forged documents are evidence of criminal fraud. With your testimony about the real timeline, we can build a case. I picked up one of the papers, a notarized form claiming Dad had power of attorney over all of Mum's assets. The notary seal looked real, but the date was wrong. Mum was still alive and competent when this was supposedly signed. How did you figure this out? I didn't at first. Your brother was very convincing, but after this morning's disaster, I started checking everything more carefully. Soleil pointed to the fake death certificate. This one was easy. The state database shows your mother died 3 months ago, not 9 months ago like this document claims. Jesus. It gets worse. I called the notary whose seal is on these papers. She's been dead for 2 years. My hands started shaking. Moses used a dead person's notary seal? Bought it online, probably. You can get fake seals for $50 if you know where to look. Soleil gathered the papers back into the folder. Your brother isn't just a drug addict, Marley. He's a career criminal. I thought about Moses's threats in the driveway, people who don't take disappointment well. There's something else, I said. Moses mentioned people who were counting on this money, people who don't handle disappointment well. Soleil's face went pale. What exactly did he say? That this was about to become everyone's problem, like he owed someone money. Shit. Soleil pulled out her phone. I need to call the police. Wait. Why? Because if your brother owes money to the wrong people and this sale was supposed to pay them back... She didn't finish the sentence. You think I'm in danger? I think we both are. If Moses promised someone a cut of this sale money and it doesn't materialize, they're going to want answers. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Nice work today. Hope you're proud of yourself. I showed Soleil the message. Her face went even paler. That's not Moses's number, I said. No, it's not. Soleil stood up. We need to go to the police station right now. I should call Anne first. She's my friend who helped with the legal stuff. Call her on the way. We're leaving now. As we walked to our cars, I called Anne and explained what Soleil had discovered. Forged notary seals? That's federal fraud, Anne said. This is way bigger than a family dispute now. Soleil thinks I might be in danger. Where are you? Heading to the police station with her. Good. I'm meeting you there. Don't go anywhere alone until we figure out who Moses is involved with. I was about to hang up when Anne said, Marley, there's something else. I've been doing some research on property transfers in your area. Your house wasn't the only one Moses tried to sell. What do you mean? He's been targeting elderly homeowners for months. Your mom wasn't his first victim. The parking lot suddenly felt too open, too exposed. Every car that drove past made me nervous. How many others? I asked. At least 3 that I've found so far. All elderly, all recently deceased, all with family members who discovered the fraud too late. I got in my car and locked the doors immediately. Anne, I think I'm in over my head. Just get to the police station, we'll figure this out. As I started driving, another text came through. You should have minded your own business. This time, there was a photo attached, a picture of me walking out of Starbucks 5 minutes ago. Someone had been watching. I pulled into the police station parking lot and immediately called Soleil. Someone's been watching us. I just got a photo of myself leaving Starbucks. I'm already inside, she said. Get in here now. Detective Martinez looked like he'd seen every kind of family drama imaginable. He listened to our story without interrupting, occasionally making notes as Soleil spread the forged documents across his desk. These are definitely fake, he said, examining the notary seals under a magnifying glass. We'll need to run them through our fraud unit, but this is clearly criminal activity. What about the threats? I asked, showing him the text messages. We'll trace the number, but these burner phones are usually dead ends. Martinez looked up from his notepad. Tell me about your brother's associates. Anyone he might owe money to? I don't know. He disappeared for 2 years, supposedly in rehab. Supposedly? I'm starting to think he was never in any rehab program. Martinez's phone rang. He answered it, spoke quietly for a minute, then hung up. That was interesting. We just ran your brother's name through the system. He's been arrested 3 times in the past 18 months, all fraud-related charges. My stomach dropped. Arrested? But he said he was in treatment. Drug possession, identity theft, and check fraud. He's been out on bail for the past 6 months. Martinez pulled up something on his computer. According to this, he owes over $40,000 in restitution to previous victims. Soleil whistled. No wonder he was desperate to sell your house. There's more, Martinez continued. One of his known associates is Fletcher McGregor. Ring any bells? I shook my head, but Soleil went rigid. I know that name, she said. He's been involved in several real estate scams around the city. Uses fake investment companies to con elderly homeowners. Bingo, Martinez said. Fletcher's been on our radar for months. If your brother owes him money, that explains the pressure tactics. My phone rang, Dad's number. Don't answer it, Martinez said. Not yet. We need to set up some protection first. Protection? If Fletcher's involved, this isn't just about money anymore. He's got a history of violence when deals go bad. Anne burst through the door of the police station looking frantic. Marley, are you okay? I'm fine. What's wrong? I've been digging deeper into Moses's activities. It's worse than we thought. She sat down and pulled out her laptop. He's been running a whole operation, targeting grieving families, forging documents, selling properties that don't belong to him. How many victims? Martinez asked. At least 8 that I can confirm, maybe more. Anne turned her screen toward us. Look at this. The screen showed a spreadsheet with names, addresses, and dollar amounts. At the bottom was a total $347,000. Jesus, I whispered. That's how much he's stolen in the past year, Anne said. Your house was supposed to be his biggest score yet. Martinez was already on his phone, calling for backup units. We need to bring Moses in immediately. There's something else, Anne said. I found this in the public records. She pulled up another document, a business registration for something called Heritage Property Solutions. The owner was listed as Fletcher McGregor, with Moses listed as a consultant. They're business partners, I said. More than that, look at the address. The business address was Dad's apartment complex. Oh my God, I said. Moses has been running this operation out of Dad's place. Martinez stood up. We need to get your father out of there right now. I'll call him, I said, but Martinez shook his head. No phone calls. If Fletcher's there, we don't want to tip him off. He grabbed his radio. I'm sending units to your father's apartment now. What if Dad's involved? I asked quietly. Is he? Martinez asked. I don't think so. He's just gullible. He wants to believe Moses has changed. We'll find out soon enough. Anne grabbed my arm. There's one more thing. I found something at your house. What do you mean, at my house? I went there after you left for the police station. The front door was open. My blood ran cold. I locked that door. Someone's been inside. They tore apart your mom's office. Martinez was already moving. We're going there now, all of us. The drive to my house felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life. 2 patrol cars were already there when we arrived, their lights flashing. One of the officers met us at the front door. House has been searched, but whoever did it is gone, he said. Looks like they were looking for something specific. Inside, Mom's home office was destroyed. File cabinets emptied, desk drawers pulled out, papers scattered everywhere. But they'd left the expensive electronics untouched. They were looking for documents, Soleil said. I walked over to Mom's desk and opened the bottom drawer. It was empty. What was in there? Martinez asked. Mom's personal papers, bank statements, insurance documents. I paused. Her will. Anne knelt down and started gathering the scattered papers. Marley, look at this. She held up an envelope with my name on it, written in Mom's handwriting. It had been torn open. This wasn't here when I cleaned out her desk, I said. Someone planted it, Martinez said. What's inside? Anne pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a letter, dated just 2 months before Mom died. My dearest Marley, Anne read aloud, if you're reading this, then Moses has probably tried to take the house. I need you to know the truth about his last visit. My hands started shaking. Keep reading. He didn't just ask for money. He threatened me, said if I didn't give him what he needed, bad things would happen to our family. That's when I knew I had to protect you in the house. Moses isn't sick, sweetheart. He's dangerous, and he's not working alone. The letter continued. I hid something for you, something that will prove what Moses has been doing. Check behind the loose brick in the basement, 3rd row from the bottom, near the furnace. Use it wisely. Love, Mom. Martinez looked at me. Did you know about this letter? No. Someone must have found it and left it here to scare me. Or to lead you to whatever your mother hid, Anne said. There's only one way to find out, Martinez said. Let's check the basement. As we headed downstairs, my phone buzzed with another text. Found what we were looking for. Thanks for the help. They'd been watching us the whole time. The basement smelled like dust and old memories. Martinez swept his flashlight across the brick wall near the furnace, while Anne and I searched for the loose brick Mom had mentioned. Here, I said, pressing against a brick in the 3rd row. It shifted slightly. This one's loose. Martinez helped me work it free. Behind it was a small metal box, the kind people use for important documents. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were photographs, bank statements, and a small digital recorder. What's on the recorder? Anne asked. I pressed play. Mom's weak voice filled the basement, but it was clear enough to understand. Moses, I already told you no. I'm not giving you money to pay off your debts. Then Moses's voice, angry and desperate. You don't understand, Mom. These aren't the kind of people you say no to. Then you shouldn't have gotten involved with them. Fletcher's going to kill me if I don't pay him back. Is that what you want? Your son dead? Don't you dare manipulate me with threats, Moses. I raised you better than this. Better than this? You raised me to be nothing. Dad was never around. You were always working, and now you're dying and leaving me with nothing. There was a long pause, then Mom's voice again, quieter but firm. Get out of my house, and don't come back. Fine, but when Fletcher comes looking for his money, don't say I didn't warn you. The recording ended. The basement was silent except for the hum of the furnace. Jesus, Martinez said. Your mother recorded him threatening her. I picked up the photographs. They showed Moses with a tall, thin man outside various houses around the city. In one photo, they were shaking hands with an elderly woman on her front porch. In another, they were loading boxes into a truck. That's Fletcher, Anne said, pointing to the thin man. I recognize him from the mugshots online. The bank statements were even worse. They showed deposits into Moses's account from something called Heritage Property Solutions, the fake company Fletcher had set up. Thousands of dollars, all from selling houses that didn't belong to them. Martinez's radio crackled. Detective, we've got a situation at the apartment complex. What kind of situation? Your suspect, Moses Delgado, is here, but he's not alone. There's a white male, mid-30s, armed and agitated. They've got the father. My legs went weak. They have Dad? We need backup units and a negotiator, Martinez said into his radio. Then he looked at me. Your father's in danger because of what we found today. This is my fault, I said. If I hadn't stopped the sale... No, Martinez cut me off. This is your brother's fault and Fletcher's. They made these choices. Anne grabbed my arm. We need to get you somewhere safe. I'm not hiding while Dad's in danger. Marley, if Fletcher has your father, it's because he wants something from you. The house, the evidence, something. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Martinez nodded. Answer it. We'll trace the call. Hello? Marley. It wasn't Moses. The voice was deeper, rougher. This is Fletcher. I think we need to talk. Where's my father? He's fine, for now, but that depends on how reasonable you're willing to be. What do you want? I want what your brother promised me. The money from selling your house. The house isn't for sale. Fletcher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Everything's for sale, sweetheart. It's just a matter of price. I'm not giving you anything. Yes, you are, because if you don't, your daddy's going to have a very bad day. Martinez was frantically gesturing to keep Fletcher talking while his team traced the call. How do I know Dad's okay? Roger, say hello to your daughter. Dad's voice came through the phone, shaky and scared. Marley, don't do what they want. This isn't your fault. Dad, Fletcher was back on the line. Touching. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over the deed to your house, and you're going to keep your mouth shut about everything you think you know. And if I don't, then your father disappears permanently, and so does your brother for that matter. Moses owes me a lot of money, and I always collect my debts. Martinez scribbled something on a piece of paper and showed it to me. Keep him talking. How much does Moses owe you? $60,000 plus interest. Your house sale was supposed to cover it, but you had to play the hero. Moses lied to you. He never owned the house. I know that now, but you do own it, which makes you responsible for his debt. That's not how it works. It's how I work. Fletcher's voice got harder. You've got 1 hour to decide. Meet me at the old warehouse on Industrial Boulevard with the signed deed, or start planning a funeral. The line went dead. Martinez was already coordinating with his team. We've got a location, Industrial Boulevard Warehouse District. That's got to be a trap, Anne said. Of course it's a trap, Martinez replied. but it's also our best chance to get your father back alive. What about Moses? I asked. What about him? Fletcher said Moses would disappear too if I don't cooperate. Martinez looked at me seriously. Your brother got himself into this mess. Your father didn't. Anne pulled me aside. You're not actually considering this, are you? Dad's in danger because of me. Dad's in danger because of Moses. There's a difference. Martinez rejoined us. We're going to set up a sting operation. You'll wear a wire, meet Fletcher at the warehouse, and we'll have the place surrounded. What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it. But right now, this is the best option we have. I looked at the evidence Mom had hidden, the photos, the recordings, the bank statements. She'd known this day would come. She'd tried to protect me, but she couldn't have predicted how far Moses would fall. Okay, I said, let's do it. Are you sure? Anne asked. No, but Dad doesn't deserve to die for Moses's mistakes. Martinez checked his watch. We've got 45 minutes to set this up. Let's move. As we headed upstairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly what Fletcher wanted, me walking into his trap with everything he needed to disappear forever. But what choice did I have? The wire felt cold against my skin as Martinez's tech specialist taped it under my shirt. We were parked 3 blocks from the warehouse, surrounded by unmarked police cars. Remember, Martinez said, we need Fletcher to admit to the kidnapping and the fraud scheme on tape. Get him talking about the other victims if you can. What if he searches me and finds the wire? Then we move in immediately. But Fletcher's arrogant. He thinks he's got all the power here. Anne squeezed my hand. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I looked at the fake deed Martinez's team had prepared, identical to the real one except for a small marking that would identify it as evidence later. Dad's counting on me. All units in position, came through Martinez's radio. Suspect vehicle spotted entering the warehouse district. My phone buzzed. Fletcher again. Building 47, east entrance. Come alone or Daddy gets hurt. Martinez nodded. That's our signal. Remember, we'll be listening to everything. I walked the 3 blocks to the warehouse, my heart pounding with each step. Building 47 was a massive concrete structure with broken windows and graffiti covering the walls. The east entrance was a rusted metal door hanging half off its hinges. Inside, the warehouse was dark except for a few work lights set up in the center of the space. Fletcher stood next to them, tall and thin like in the photos, wearing expensive clothes that looked out of place in the abandoned building. Dad was tied to a chair beside him, duct tape over his mouth but his eyes alert and angry. Moses sat on the floor nearby, his hands zip-tied behind his back and a nasty bruise on his left cheek. Marley, Fletcher called out. So nice of you to join us. Did you bring what I asked for? I held up the fake deed. Let my father go first. That's not how this works. Deed first, then we negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. You get the deed, I get Dad, and we're done. Fletcher laughed. Oh, sweetheart, we're just getting started. See, your brother here has been very chatty about your family's finances. He kicked Moses in the ribs. Moses groaned behind his gag. Turns out your mother had quite a bit of life insurance money. Money that should rightfully go to her children. The insurance money is none of your business. It is when Moses owes me $60,000. Fletcher pulled out a gun and pointed it casually at Dad's head. Now here's the new deal. I get the house deed plus $50,000 in cash from the insurance money. I don't have $50,000. Then you better figure out how to get it. I hear banks give nice loans when you have a house as collateral. Dad was shaking his head frantically, trying to speak through the tape. My father's trying to tell you something, I said. Fletcher ripped the tape off Dad's mouth. Dad gasped and immediately started talking. Don't give him anything, Marley. This man is a criminal. He's been using Moses to steal from families all over the city. Shut up, old man, Fletcher snapped. No, I won't shut up. I know what you've been doing. Moses showed me the files, the Hendersons on Oak Street, the Martinez family on Pine Avenue, the elderly woman on Elm. Fletcher backhanded Dad across the face. I said shut up. You've been targeting grieving families, I said, hoping the wire was picking up everything, stealing their homes while they're vulnerable. I prefer to think of it as providing opportunities. These people were going to lose their houses anyway. I just helped speed up the process. By forging documents and using fake notaries? Fletcher shrugged. Business expenses. Moses here was very good at the paperwork. Weren't you, Moses? He kicked Moses again. This time, Moses looked up at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine remorse. I'm sorry, Moses mumbled through his gag. I'm so sorry, Marley. Sorry doesn't pay debts, Fletcher said. Now, about that deed. I want to know something first, I said. How many families have you destroyed? Destroyed? I helped them. They got cash for properties they couldn't afford to maintain anyway. You stole from them. I provided a service, and business has been very good, thanks to your brother's connections in the grief counseling community. My blood ran cold. Grief counseling? Moses has been attending support groups all over the city. Widows, widowers, people dealing with loss, very trusting people, very vulnerable, perfect targets. Dad's face went white. Moses, tell me you didn't. Moses couldn't meet his eyes. Oh, he did, Fletcher continued. Moses would befriend these people, gain their trust, get access to their personal information. Then I'd swoop in with my fake investment company and help them maximize their property value. You're sick, I said. I'm profitable. There's a difference. Fletcher gestured with his gun. Now, enough chatting. Deed. Now. I stepped forward with the fake deed, but Fletcher held up his hand. Actually, let's make this more interesting. Moses, tell your sister what you told me about your mother's final days. Moses shook his head frantically. Fletcher pressed the gun against Dad's temple. Tell her, or I blow Daddy's brains out right here. I stole from her, Moses said quietly. While she was dying, I stole her credit cards, her checkbook, her jewelry. I sold everything I could get my hands on. The warehouse fell silent, except for Dad's quiet sobbing. Even her wedding ring, Moses continued. I took it right off her finger while she was unconscious in the hospital. You bastard, Dad whispered. And the best part? Fletcher said. He used the money to pay me for more fake documents so he could steal from other families. Your mother's jewelry funded our entire operation. That's when I heard it, the sound of car doors slamming outside. Martinez and his team were moving in. Fletcher heard it too. His expression changed instantly from smug to panicked. You called the cops. Actually, I said, they've been listening this whole time. The warehouse doors burst open. Police, drop your weapon. Fletcher spun toward the entrance, gun still in his hand. Martinez and 6 officers flooded through the doorway, weapons drawn. Let me see your hands. Now. Fletcher looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped. For a moment, I thought he might shoot Dad anyway, just out of spite. But then his shoulders sagged and he dropped the gun. Hands behind your head. On your knees. 2 officers tackled Fletcher while Martinez rushed to untie Dad. Anne appeared beside me, having followed the police in despite orders to stay back. Are you okay? She asked. I'm fine. Check on Dad. Dad was shaking as Martinez cut the zip ties from his wrists. Molly, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what Moses was involved in. I know, Dad. It's not your fault. Moses was still on the floor, watching the chaos around him with dead eyes. An officer was reading Fletcher his rights, while another called for paramedics to check Dad for injuries. The wire worked perfectly, Martinez said. We got everything. Fletcher's confession about the fraud ring, the targeting of grief support groups, even the admission about stealing your mother's jewelry. What happens now? Fletcher's looking at federal fraud charges, kidnapping, armed robbery. He's going away for a long time. Martinez looked at Moses. Your brother's going to face charges too, but his cooperation might get him a reduced sentence. Dad walked over to Moses, who was now sitting up against a concrete pillar. How could you do this? To your own mother? Moses finally looked up. I was desperate, Dad. The drugs, the debts. I thought I could fix everything if I just got enough money. By stealing from dying people? I know how it sounds. No, you don't. Dad's voice was quiet but firm. You have no idea how this sounds. Your mother spent her last months worrying about what would happen to this family. She died thinking she'd failed as a parent because of what you became. Moses started crying. I wanted to tell her I was sorry. I tried to visit her at the end, but she wouldn't see me. Because you'd already stolen from her. Because she knew you were lying about being clean. Dad turned away. I can't even look at you right now. The paramedics arrived and checked Dad over. Bruised ribs, some cuts on his face, but nothing serious. Fletcher had roughed him up, but hadn't done any permanent damage. We'll need you all to come to the station for formal statements, Martinez said, but the immediate danger is over. As we walked out of the warehouse, Anne pulled me aside. There's something else you should know. While you were in there, I got a call from the district attorney's office. About what? Fletcher's operation was bigger than we thought. They've identified at least 15 families he defrauded over the past 2 years. The total damages are over $500,000. Jesus. But here's the thing. Most of those families will get their money back. Fletcher kept detailed records of everything, probably for tax purposes. The DA can trace where all the stolen money went. That's good news, right? For them, yes. For Moses? Anne shrugged. He's going to prison. There's no way around it. 3 weeks passed before Moses' sentencing hearing. Dad and I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching as the judge read through the charges. 15 counts of fraud, conspiracy, identity theft. The prosecutor recommended 8 years. Moses' lawyer argued for leniency, citing his addiction and willingness to cooperate with the investigation. But when the judge asked Moses if he had anything to say, his response surprised everyone. Your Honor, I don't deserve leniency. I stole from people when they were at their most vulnerable. I betrayed my family's trust and dishonored my mother's memory. Moses looked back at Dad and me. I can't undo what I've done, but I can accept responsibility for it. The judge sentenced him to 6 years in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, Dad was quiet. We walked to his car in silence, both of us processing what had just happened. I keep thinking about your mother, he said finally. How she knew this would happen and tried to protect you. She protected both of us, Dad. The house, the evidence she hid, she made sure we'd be okay. I should have listened to her about Moses years ago. We all wanted to believe he could change. Dad started the car but didn't put it in drive. What happens now? With us, I mean. What do you want to happen? I want to be a better father than I was when your mother was sick. I want to help you take care of her house, her garden. I want to honor her memory the right way. I'd like that. That evening, I sat in Mom's kitchen with a cup of tea, looking through the photo albums she'd kept on the shelf. Pictures of family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings when Moses and I were kids and everything seemed possible. My phone buzzed with a text from Anne. Fletcher got 22 years. The other victims are getting their money back. Justice served. I typed back, thanks for everything. Couldn't have done this without you. What are you going to do now? I looked around the kitchen, Mom's kitchen, my kitchen now. The roses in the garden were blooming again, just like she would have wanted. Dad was coming over tomorrow to help me organize her papers and maybe cook dinner together. I'm going to live, I typed back. The way Mom would have wanted me to. I walked over to Mom's desk and pulled out a piece of paper. At the top, I wrote, "Things to do with the house." Below that, I started a list. Fix the front porch steps, paint the guest bedroom, plant new roses in the spring. At the bottom, I added one more item, make it a home again. Fletcher had thought taking the house would solve his problems. Moses had thought selling it would solve his. But Mom had known the truth all along. Home isn't something you can steal or sell or destroy. It's something you protect, something you nurture, something you pass on to the people who matter most. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it protects you right back.